In this video, I would like to explain the VLOOKUP formula. VLOOKUP is one of the most important formulas in the real business world, and I think it's one of the most frequently used one as well. So getting to know it will open a lot of doors for your day-to-day Excel operations. I would like to start with giving you the simplest possible example of how to use it. So if you are just interested of how to use it, if you just received the report that has it and you don't understand what it does, stay tuned for another 2 or 3 minutes and where I'll just give you the simplest way to use it. Later on, I would like to jump onto a little bit more complicated scenarios, give you some practical use tips, and also cover the downsides of this formula and all its limitations, plus potentially how to solve them. So without much explanation just yet, let's have a look at the example. I have a very simple table here. The table has 2 columns. One column is a country and the second column is the corresponding city. This city happens to be capital of that country, and my task is to find out the capital city of a given country. We're going to use VLOOKUP to achieve that. There are a couple of ways you can initiate VLOOKUP formula in Excel, and I'm going to start with the simplest and most basic one. Later on, we're going to use simple typing. However, for now, if we go up to the formulas menu and from there lookup and reference, selecting the last value here, that's going to bring us the formula wizard, which is very convenient and worth to remember that it does exist, probably slower than typing it manually. In our case, lookup value is going to be Hungary, which I could manually type in as Hungary with double quotes, or knowing that I have this value in one of the cells in Excel, I can click on the arrow and simply reference that to the corresponding cell. Now we need to tell Excel where are we looking for this value, and in our case this is going to be the entire table. If I click back the arrow, I have the reference here. The third question is, okay, so from this table, which column holds the value you want? In our case, we want the city, so this is going to be second column of our table. The last value I'm going to ignore for now. All I can tell you is that 99% of the time you will be leaving it as 0 or false, as Excel automatically translates. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to explain what is the difference. For now, all you need to remember is that this is most of the time 0. If I click OK, you can see that this is indeed Budapest, and to demonstrate that it does work, if I change that to France, we're going to see Paris, and if I change that to Germany, we're going to see Berlin. Now this was just the basic example, and I think I would be much faster looking it up visually rather than typing formula into Excel. However, let's have a look at an example where VLOOKUP starts becoming very, very useful. I have a very similar scenario here, however this time there's many more countries. So if I wanted to find out what is the capital of Croatia or Cuba, unless I know them by heart and I can take advantage of the fact that the cities are sorted alphabetically, it will take me a while to scroll up and down and find those values. Let's type in VLOOKUP formula to do that for us. Now, I mentioned last time that there are a couple of ways you can initiate VLOOKUP formula. I'm going to show you the faster one now. The previous formula wizard is very useful, however, in the real day-to-day Excel operations, I think most of the time you're going to be using typing in the formula. So if I jump into cell G7 and start my formula with equals to, if I start typing VLOOKUP, Excel will automatically suggest that this is the value I'm looking for. I could keep typing and complete the VLOOKUP phrase, or I can hit tab on my keyboard and that will initiate the formula. Now, same as when using a wizard, is going to ask me what lookup value I'm looking for. In our case, this is going to be Croatia, or to put it simpler, cell F7. So I click on that. Now I need to separate this from the next argument, so I will press comma, and as you can see here, Excel jumps to the next part of the formula. In this case, table array is going to be the entire table the entire table holding countries and their corresponding capital cities. So I'm going to select that, and I could just drag down my mouse until I reach the end of the table. Or what I would like to slowly start getting everyone used to is use keyboard shortcuts. So if I click in cell A3 and then hold Control, hold Shift and press arrow to the right and then press arrow down, this is a keyboard shortcut to select the entire field range from within our table. If I press comma again, Excel will jump to the third argument, which similarly like in the previous example, this is going to be the second column of the range we just selected. And the last one, again, not much explanation just yet. I'm just going to type in a 0, hit enter. And as you can see, the capital of Croatia is Zagreb. I can now drag this formula down, and we will take advantage of the autofill feature, which will jump formula one step down and tell me the value for Cuba. Now you probably notice on my screen that there are a couple of weird values here, and I have to admit that this might be a little bit of outside the scope for this video. However, I would like to definitely show you a very useful trick when using VLOOKUP formula. Now, once again, this might be not the most practical as it's hard not to remember Croatia. However, imagine if I knew that there is a country that starts with CRO and I just don't remember what are the last letters. Now, you can use VLOOKUP with the wildcard to find the value. So if I start typing in VLOOKUP, and in this case, this weird value is what we're looking for, type comma to select the table, and let's once again do it with the not recommended method, selecting the entire A and B columns. Now the values will be of course from my second column, and the exact or approximate match we're going to say 0, close the bracket, and as you can see it will find the corresponding capital. Now, in exactly the same way, if I did remember that the word ends with ATIA, I could just drag this formula down, and as you can see, this is going to work. One last example, if I didn't know a couple middle letters, it could be, as you can see here, this is, I'm just missing 2 letters. I could be missing 3 of them. It's still going to work. Now, one thing to remember here is that the more of the word you're missing, the more likelihood there is that there is a similar word and it's going to be picked up by the VLOOKUP formula. I'm going to get to limitations of VLOOKUP formula. However, worth stressing at this point that one of the biggest limitations is that it's only looking at the first value it can find. So if there was more than one Croatia, it would only look at the first one it can find. It will not go any farther, but we'll get into that at the end of the video. Now let's have a look at the practical use of VLOOKUP and how you could potentially apply it in your real day-to-day work. So let's imagine a scenario where I have a product in 2 different countries and my task is to evaluate whether it makes sense to buy it in one or another, of course the goal being paying as little as possible. To do that, I need to convert the country's currency into my local currency, which happens to be British pounds. And it's relatively simple here in UK. You can go to the Gov.uk website, and then HMRC publishes the list of exchange rates. I'm going to select View Online, and if you want, you can just copy the address from here. I already copied that to my clipboard. So let's jump back to Excel. And now within Excel, if I go to Data, Get Data, and then from Other Sources, select From Web. And by the way, if you're not seeing that, most likely you're using older version of Excel. You can read all about it. It's called Power Query. If you're missing that, then it is still possible, however, a little bit outside the scope of this video. So if I click on From Web, Excel is going to ask me about the web address. If I paste that from my address bar, Excel is going to now show me what the website looks like and what it thinks I'm looking for. So if I go to a web view, I can see the website as it is. This is exactly what I could see in my browser. However, if I go to table view, this is the data part of the website. So the first table here, we can ignore, those are some attributes. However, the second one is exactly what we're looking for. Now this is a little bit advanced, so I'm not going to go into details, but for now, all you need to remember is that if you click load, Excel should bring the table into the spreadsheet and allow you to use it. So after a couple of seconds, I have the table full of data. If I close that, let's try to illustrate our scenario. So we have product 1, and then country. Let's imagine that one is in Hungary, second one is in America. And in Hungary, the value of the product is £100,000. In America, this is $400. Now, what I need to do now is calculate the GBP value. To do that, I need to take the local currency value and divide it by column D from this table for a corresponding country. So if I say 100,000 or cell I5 divided by, and now start typing VLOOKUP, once again hitting the tab button will allow me to finish the formula. Now in this case our lookup value will be Hungary. The table will be the entire table here. Let's select everything. I know we don't need start date and end date, but let's keep it to demonstrate that this is not really relevant. If I hit comma, column index number in this case is going to be 4 because currency units per £1 are stored in column D. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Unlike in previous examples when it was the second column. And once again, we're going to say 0 for the last part. If I hit enter, it's going to tell me that it's going to be 273 pounds in UK. So let's see what would it be in America. This is 320. And you could step into this formula, and to show you that it does work, let's quickly evaluate this part. I'm not going to explain what I'm doing, but just simply to show you that it works. So this is 365. If I go to Hungary here, as you can see, this is indeed 365. Now I promised to demonstrate what does the last bit of VLOOKUP syntax do, so let's quickly look at my example here. I have a simple table which tells me what discount can customer count on when buying units of my product. If they buy up to 100 units, they can expect 5% discount, between 100 and 200 10% discount, and above 200 it's a 20% discount. So let's use VLOOKUP to calculate what the discount percentage would be given different values. So let's start with a simple example, imagining that customer bought 100 units. If I type in my VLOOKUP formula, I'm going to say VLOOKUP, this is my lookup value, this is my table array, and note that the lookup value, that the column that holds lookup value should be always the first column of the selected range. That's one of the limitations I'm going to go over in my next part of this video. However, for now, just bear that in mind. This is going to be in the second column of selected range, and let's type 0 just to demonstrate the point. Now, at the moment it shows 10%, which is correct. This is exactly the discount we would like to apply. However, what would happen if the customer bought 25 units? Formula will return NA because there is no value for 25. However, we can see that this should be 5%. So in order to achieve that, if I change 0 to 1 or true, I'm going to get the correct value. That can be very useful in many scenarios. However, just to demonstrate how it behaves, if I change that now to 100 units, that's going to jump to 10%. And if I change it to 200, it's going to change to 20%. Anything above that should give me 20%. What I'm trying to show you here is that this one effectively means included. So when I say up to 100, I mean up to 100 but excluding 100. 100 is already 10%, so if I change that to 99, this is going to be 5%. There's many ways you can apply that, and as I said, most of the time you are going to be using the 0 as a last argument, however, worth knowing what it does. Now let's go through some of the limitations I've been mentioning throughout the video. The very first one we've seen already in one of the examples, however, just to demonstrate it one more time, VLOOKUP will only pick up the first value. So like in this case, when you have Croatia appearing twice in the table, VLOOKUP will only give you the first corresponding value. No matter how many more Croatias there were, it's always going to pick up the first one it can find. So the way you sort your data will affect the VLOOKUP. Second one is the fact that VLOOKUP is one-dimensional formula. In this situation, it would be nice to have a way where I can select both the currency and the month. However, VLOOKUP does not allow you to do that. You could achieve this using index and match formulas nested together, which I'm going to cover in a separate video. However, with VLOOKUP, it would be much more difficult. Third one would be the fact that I can only look for a single value. In this situation, it would be nice if I could specify more than one criteria for a search. So for example, what is the value for Zagreb in Croatia, opposed to what is the value for Croatia in Makarska, for Makarska in Croatia. However, VLOOKUP only allows you to do one. So there are many ways to overcome that. Probably the most useful is the Power Query, which is a feature from Excel 2013 onwards, and for which I'm going to be making a long video. However, just something to remember now. The last bit is the fact that the performance of VLOOKUP can significantly affect your file. Now, all my examples were very simple tables, but there are situations where you're going to export data in thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of rows, in which VLOOKUP can perform really poorly. There's been a significant improvement over the versions of Excel. However, there are situations where VLOOKUP can simply be very slow. There are ways to, of course, speed this up. However, I'm going to cover them in separate videos, so watch out for videos about Power Pivot, Power Query, as well as scripting dictionaries in Excel Visual Basics.